You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. You moved on. I know that's what we do. There's some yard work, some stuff that I can't do on my own. I called someone, they didn't answer. I called the next one. That's why you need, and that's why they needed Open Phone. You never miss an opportunity to connect with your customers. Open Phone is the number one business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications. You can, if you need to juggle two phone calls to keep business and personal separate, Open Phone can help solve that instantly. The AI agent helps handle calls after hours, answers common questions, captures leads so you never miss a customer call again. That's why 60,000 businesses trust Open Phone. They're offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/locked-on-college. Openphone, openphone.com/locked-on-college. They'll even port over your existing number for free. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. Parker Ainsworth, Locked On Coogs here. And we talked a lot about how things shaped up for the Cougs. Now, I like hearing that my Locked On brethren are buying in as well. But I want to address what success would mean for this season. Where I guess the recording is about 10 days out, right? As the 18th, game's on the 28th. As we're recording, so you're hearing this 19th. We're less than 2 weeks out from the football season kicking off. And thinking about what is successful for this season. And I would tell you, frankly, that a competitive athlete, they're going to say they want to win every week. I mean, you might not set it out like we're going to win all 12 games in week one, but every week you're going to try to go 1-0. I talk into a microphone, right? That's not what I have to do in this. But I totally get that that's going to be some people's mentality about what is successful. You didn't win that week. You're not successful that week. I get that. But as the guy that gets to talk to a microphone, this is not the basketball team I coach, right? I put down a couple bullet points that I think would make me feel like this was a successful year 2 in the rebuild under Willie Fritz. And the first this thing is, if you have listened to the show for a minute, you've heard me talk about how offenses need a thing. Under Slade Nagle, Houston's offense, to be successful, to consider the season a success, needs to develop that thing. Right now, some people are inside zone people, some people are power counter people, some people run mesh, some people run China routes. So whatever you do, you need to have a thing to say, hey, it's first down. We need positive play here. We're going to run zone read. Or we're going to run, we need a thing to do that we can fall back and hang our hat on. They did not have that last season. One of the many issues of the offense is they were just kind of throwing stuff at a wall and hoping it stuck to the bullseye. And this season, with Slade Nagle, his connection with Willie Fritz, and a strong quarterback room led by Connor Wegman and a better offensive line, I think that it's safe to say success for this team is going to require the offense to develop a thing or an identity. Now, with Nagle, I have my guess as to what it is. I think it's going to probably be, honestly, 21, and let's call it 12 personnel and some form of an off-tackle kind of play. That's what they did with cutback lanes when he was at Tulane, but we'll see what happens. I do think, though, they need to have that thing. A defensive deal is, listen, I understand that the defense may not repeat exactly the level of success they had a year ago. Sometimes the ball breaks your way. Defense definitely is more erratic from year to year as far as the movements and changes, because sometimes the ball does not go your way, right? I will say, though, that for the season to be a success, the defense needs to be strong enough to prove last year was not a fluke, right? Last year was not a right place, right time kind of combination of talent. Last year's not hey, we know they're going to run because they don't have to pass. Last year, they need to prove this year on defense, be good enough this year on defense to prove that last year was not a fluke. Now, if they're in the top 25 again on defense, that'd be sick, right? But if they're better than average, if they're respectable, if they're helping Houston win games, that is a markedly, it means it's successful because it means that last year is not just some random thing. This is part of the Fritz identity and rebuilding the culture, right? That's why they need that to be successful. Along the same lines, no blowouts, no blanks. Last year, you had 3 different games without an offensive touchdown. You had just 1 touchdown against the UNLV, just 10 points against Baylor, 12 against Oklahoma. Actually, you had 4 games without offensive touchdown because the touchdown against Baylor was a defensive touchdown. Ultimately, what you need this season is to be in the game. Not down 20-0, not down 34-7, right? Like your offense, defense, complementing each other needs to keep you in games. Give yourself chances to win. Trust the culture Fritz is building. You'll find yourself like you did against Kansas State and Utah last season on the right side of these things more often than not. Keep yourself. That means keep yourself in the game means keep yourself in the game on offense, keep yourself in the game on defense. But last year, the blanks, the blowouts, you never gave yourself a chance in half a dozen games, right? And so part of that's the offense, admittedly, but it's also special teams, not muffing a punt here, Norman, Oklahoma, or whatever, right? Like you got to make sure you're doing things that help keep yourself in the game. No blowouts, no blanks. Get this thing back to being Houston Cougar football. Last but not least, I don't mean to put a win-loss total on it. A successful season this season feels like a bowl game. And I mean that to say that that should feel like a floor expectation. I understand that when we get to the end of the season, we might feel like, oh, we let 1 or 2 get away and we still made a bowl game. Maybe we should have been 7-5, 8-4, whatever. And again, the players, if you ask them, are going to say we need to go 1-0 every week, right? Totally get that. But from a macro level, if Willie Fritz comes in and with a skeleton of a roster left to him, he goes 4-8. The next year, they go 6-6 or better, make a bowl. And he brings in the caliber of recruiting class he's bringing in. Henderson and everybody, right? Suddenly, things continue to grow, right? You can show, with proof of concept that things are getting better year to year, right? Especially when, let's admit it, your schedule this year is in your favor. It's not that it's an easy schedule relative to like playing in the Timbuktu conference or whatever, but it is not as difficult as it could have been. You need to take advantage and you need to win some games, put yourself in a bowl. And frankly, from a program development standpoint, putting yourself in a bowl means you get an extra few weeks of practice at the end of the year. And with the young guys who'll be on the team the next season, you get to prove it to them by giving them the reps of practice, giving them bowl games, get them some work, get them some extra coaching. All of those things build into successful programs, right? It's the reason I would argue to play in week 0. You get an extra bit of practice, you get to start earlier. That's the way that goes. And I think that is a big, big deal. Speaking of week 0, last episode's trivia question was about a rumored week 0 matchup with Michigan State that was supposed to be this weekend. I believe there was one report. I think it was Go Coogs said it should have even been in Dublin, Ireland. I fully trust them. I just hadn't heard anyone else say that. That would have only been the second time, had it happened, that Houston and Michigan State matched up. The question last episode was, when was the first matchup? What was the score? Houston won in 1967, 37-7, and the only other matchup with Michigan State back then. Now, Michigan State was coming off a couple of pretty strong years before that one, and the Houston Cougars showed them who's boss. Now, today's trivia question, answer the comments down below. We'll answer it next episode. How many different head coaches has the Houston Cougar football program had? I'll repeat, how many different head coaches has the Houston Cougar football program had? Thank you all so much for tuning in today to Locked On Cougs, primarily the Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team every day. Go Cougs.